know I went and bought that today just for y'all, and I got up here after Blake, man. I was like, Jesus, Lord. I started sweating. I'm like, man.
I told you what we sweating over there.
Hey, I gotta say, man, I want to say, I did get to bring a couple of my guys before we dive into it. Thank you so much. Brock is with me. Today is his first birthday sober. Hey, I also gotta say, Eli, stand up for a minute. 2 months ago, Eli was on trial. The first offer was life without. That's when they dropped the death penalty.
Come on.
The next offer 1 week later was 60 years. Eli sat in a jail from the time, you can sit down now, Bubba, I don't want to keep you on the spot. But he sat in isolation because of the nature of his charge. See, Eli's addiction, he was trying to get to point A to point B. At 18 years old, he'd been in the streets so long that he had hit a point where he wanted some help. And so he was still high, but he said, hey, I'll give you $20 if you'll come get me. Take me from here to my mom's house so I can go to rehab.
Come on.
Well, during that 20-minute car ride, a police officer lost his life. And so Eli was the passenger in that car, and it's okay that I'm up here I'm not telling his story. I want you to see what Jesus has done in his life. He stuck to his guns because he knew he was an innocent passenger, right? But sometimes the enemy will put us in a situation that we don't have to do nothing. Just being in that atmosphere will affect your life. 2 months ago, they dropped the the accessory to capital murder on a law enforcement. His fall partner was sentenced to life without. Eli was sentenced to 15 years probation, and they sent him to me for 18 months. Yeah. Now here's your hit. For everybody who still needs something to change the way you feel because you ain't found that author and creator yet, right? Because that's ultimately, we were created with a void, right? The sin, we were created perfect, but sin separated us from God. And when that initial sin happened, we were left with this void. So we got two choices on how to fill that void. We either use a man-made substitute or we use the author and creator of all things, right? That's it. So here's your hit. Come on, get that baby the mic. Come on up here. So 2 weeks ago, Eli got baptized, right? And last night, here's another hit. Last night, Eli goes with Brad and Blake and ASAP into the jail, and he gets to baptize. That's crazy. So listen, before we dive into my stuff, because I know I only got 30 minutes, but listen, I got a video. Is the video queued up? Can we kill the lights and play that real quick? I want you to know that this is just for your eyes.
The airplanes were coming in with loads of cocaine into Arkansas at our rural airports. I'm seeing drug addiction.
This substance use disorder, it's all around us. It's just a perfect storm for illicit drug dealers. It's all about money.
Like, I would go to any length to get high. I'm out in Macon, Arkansas. I'm burglarizing houses. I'm no longer timid. I'm no longer afraid of physical confrontation.
Our overdose deaths were climbing in our state.
When I got high, there was 3 things I wanted to do. Get dope, use dope, and hide from Kirk Lahane.
Pursuing Jimmy McGill became a challenge. His name kept popping up.
He's the freaking boogeyman.
And we were at a point where we had to change things because people were dying.
My son died from an overdose. Addiction had reduced my son to a picture.
Ironically, God knew 20 years ago that he had a bigger plan for Jimmy McGill and Kirk Lahane.
Sometimes on this journey,
We're listening and we're learning from people like Jimmy that have been there and done that have been through the fire. Jimmy's message, like so many in his position, saves lives. It makes people open up.
my story's just begun.
That's what recovery does.
To find me.
You know, it unlocks the gates of hell and it sets you free.
So I got to say, for me, that next best fix is God. And I need you to know, for you to really go on this journey we're about to go on for the next 20 minutes or so, you really got to understand the darkness that he brought me out of. And have no doubt that the only reason I'm on this stage clean right now instead of in the parking lot robbing all your cars is God.
Come on.
Yeah. February 27th of 2015 was the last day that I ever put a chemical in me. Right? And I get to live this life right now because when addiction tore my life into pieces, God picked those pieces up and made a masterpiece with them, man. He is the only thing I've seen be able to take my test and turn it into a testimony and my mess into a message. Right? So I need you to understand a few things. My life skills before this were at a bare minimum. I was literally animalistic level, right? Like I knew a few things, but they weren't contributing to life. Like I knew how to tear your brand new iPhone up with a butter knife, right? I know I ain't the only one who had a pilfer backpack. Let me see your hands. Huh? Let me know I'm in the right place. How many of y'all spend 6 hours on a shoebox full of phone chargers? And they didn't even have a phone that went to it. Come on, man. Come on. So if you ask me why I do this right now, I need you to know it's because I never want to put another chemical in me. And the second I get high, I think Blake and Brad are talking about me without talking. Huh? And now I got to figure out how they're communicating. You know what I'm talking about, man. Scraping old dried up food off the counter and getting, oh man, thinking it was a chemical. I'm talking about a true level of desperation. Dang, you must have been in my house, bro. Hey, you might still have a warrant, boy. Hey, listen, I need you to know though, all jokes to the side, man, I can laugh about the things that used to hurt me because my God is a healing God, right? And I didn't know the plans he had for me, but his word confirmed that he did in Jeremiah 29:11. And I get to live an amazing life today, right? I'm going to talk a lot about recovery, but I need you to understand this. In my mind, the reason I have recovery is God's grace and mercy. Amen. All right? Now, I want to say that because I know there's some diehard Jesus freaks in here, right? Let me see you. So when I start telling you about things like recovery and sobriety, I need you to know that nowhere in my heart or conscience is the giver of the gift getting less credit than the gift. Because the giver deserves more credit than the gift, right? But I need you to know some things too. I come at recovery from a very practical standpoint. I know if I put one in me, I'm not stopping till I hit the holding cell. And I've got years of a life that really do confirm that. Now, the guy you saw in the video was Kirk Lane. I want to tell you a couple things before we get to the cool stuff. Now, I'm going to be very transparent with you. I'm going to get up here. I'm going to be all the way real. It's not me sharing a war story or trying to make you laugh. It's in order for you to know what he did, you need to know where I was at. Yeah. Because he was the light that shines so bright in the dark world that I was in the darkness, couldn't extinguish that. Yeah. Right? And so, as far back as I can remember, I'm trapped in this atmosphere of drug addiction. I watched my dad get a murder charge. I watched him get a rape charge. I watched him get robbery charges, right? I know it's not It's not cool to get up here and tell the truth, right? But I saw Blake do it, so I said, I better do it too. I better do it too, because you ain't going to shame me tonight. And so this is how I'm raised. And so I'm the third generation of addiction, man. Right? My grandpa ran bootleg moonshine up and down Louisiana and Arkansas. When I needed my daddy, he needed a syringe, man. Yeah. I grew up in an atmosphere of child neglect and abandonment, and in that atmosphere, a thug mentality emerged. Somewhere along the lines, I realized that when I displayed attributes of violence, my father thought it was cute, and he connected with me. When I hauled off and socked the neighbor's kid, he rubbed me on my head, and I was like, 2 + 2. That's how it happens. I mimic my father, and I get attention. I get it. It makes sense. And so I learned a real simple math equation. Pain plus anything other than God equaled relief to me. And I sought that out. And as far back as I can remember, I've always had the ability to be a leader, right? I know now that leadership is a biblical gift from God. It's confirmed in Romans when he says, if you have the ability to lead well, right? That's right. And so I know now why I've always had influence, and I know why the devil always had his hands on me. And I also know that what the world meant for bad, God will use for good. I also know that he said, I'll use the foolish things to baffle the wise. And by the time I'm through, you're going to know I was the biggest donkey you could have found. You'll know 2 things, that God has always had his hand over me, and he continues to today, and I was the world's stupidest criminal. That's the other thing. Right? I'm going to tell you a few things. I was 4 years old. I stabbed my neighbor's kid with a potato peeler. He slapped my hand, Blake. We was outside cutting trees with a butter knife, and I had a potato peeler because I could only sneak one butter knife out. Right? At least that's what I'm telling myself. And when he slapped my hand, my natural instinct was to stab him in his shoulder blade. My dad came home and he beat me severely that day. Do you all know why he beat me? Because the law got called. Not because I stabbed the kid. When I was 9 years old, I was left with, unsupervised in Savannah, Georgia, with a kid named Trey Jackson. He was my best friend. I was the first kid in the neighborhood to have a Nintendo. I'm talking old school Nintendo. Came with a robot. It helped you play. Y'all know about that? It wasn't but 2 games, Duck Hunt and Mario. I had a little toy gun. Yeah. So while I'm left in this atmosphere again of child neglect and abandonment, playing unsupervised with this .22 rifle, I shoot Trey, my best friend. He spends weeks in the hospital. The bullet missed his heart by 2 inches, thank God. Right? So by the time I'm 9, I've stabbed and shot, been abandoned, sexually molested, you name it, I experienced it. But God had a plan, man. That was just the beginning. And kind of like Joseph, today we were talking about the story of Joseph, who was 38 when God started elevating him. I found my recovery when I was 38. And so I grow up, I'm in this atmosphere of chaos, and there's this top cop in my neighborhood, and his name was Kirk Lane. Now, this was before the governor appointed him to be the drug czar. And if you're in here and you're not into advocacy work yet, stay clean and sober, and I guarantee you'll get there, right? And so what that means is his solution was to arrest his way out of the problem. Now, he's running all over North Little Rock. He's arresting my cousins, my daddies, my family members, my dad's friends. Like, this dude is notoriously known to get his guy. At this time, he's like a patrolman, and then he gets a detective position, and then they put him as captain over the CID, and then he becomes chief of police, and then he's appointed by the... I know, Brad, I followed his career just from the backseat of the car, right? I was with him through all those promotions, right? It's me and you, buddy. Now, I want to share a couple of stories with you so you understand the level of addiction I was in. I did what every good drug addict would do. I would wake up and I would hit a lick. And so I get up one morning and I drive about 40 miles outside of where I live to a place called Macon, Arkansas. I go in this house, and I need y'all to know I did time over this, so I'm not doing anything other than giving my testimony. I go in this house, there's this rare set of DVDs. Now, for you younger cats, that's a thing that movies used to be on. So I take these DVDs, and there was a store called Hastings, and you could sell DVDs at Hastings for $2 each. And okay, sis. So I go in there, I lay the DVDs on the counter. Now here's what you need to know. I went out of town to rob the house, and I went to a different town to sell the DVDs. So don't tell me God don't have a sense of humor at the end of this story. I go in, I lay the DVDs on the counter, Blake, and I say, I need to sell these. Here's my driver's license. The man says, I have to call for an override. This is a rare set of Japanimation, which is cartoon movies. They call it anime now, but back then it was Japanimation. And so the guy comes over there and he says, wow, man, wow, do you know how rare this is? And I'm like, yeah. Hired, I'm chewing air biscuit. Yeah. You know? Look like I'm fresh off the Walking Dead skit, you know what I mean? He turns another page and he says, man, I've got this same collection. And I'm like, really? Well, can I get my money? And he turned the next page and he said, where did you get these? And by now I'm getting agitated because I need a hotel room and 8-ball. And he's like, hang on, man. I've got to call my house. Don't let him leave. Out of all the houses I could have robbed, out of all the stores I could have went into, I tried to sell that man his stuff, y'all. I need you to understand that I was sentenced to 7 years in the Department of Corrections for that. That's crazy, right? What are the odds of that? Well, what is the odds that the entire universe is hanging on by one molecule without exploding? If God can create man from dust and women from a rib, you don't think he can make me rob the store owner's house and try to sell it to him? Impossible. So I go to Arkansas. In Arkansas, you do 2 months on each year. So I get a 7-year bid. I go do 14 months. Understand this too. I do hard time. I don't do easy time. I get a butcher knife. I get some contraband. I get some shoes, a Walkman, and I ride. You know what I mean? That's all I know. One way, the dumb way. That's it. And I do my 14 months. I come home. I don't get offered any services. Nobody talks to me about recovery. Nobody's introducing me to anything that might get me out of this childhood trauma that continues me. Blake talked about it, right? The trauma underneath. What are we trying to bury and cover up, right? And so nobody's helping me. So I do what I always did. I got up, and this time I've learned a lesson, Jessica. I'm not going that way. I'm going this way. So I go 50 miles the opposite way of the other town. And I broke in a house. And I took some guys with me because I'm a lazy crook. And I said, man, y'all grab that safe. I'm going to step out here. I'm going to smoke this Newport, and I'm going to keep watch. So I step outside, and this is old couple, and they have a carport. And I'm smoking while my guys are carrying the safe to the car. And I throw my cigarette butt down. And yeah, I told you I was stupid. And so this elderly people, they're retired, they're out of town. ASAP, they don't smoke. So when the folks came and they said, well, that's not ours, they linked my DNA to this robbery. And guess what? I got 7 more years. Now, did I tell you on the first burglary, it was Kirk that came and arrested me? Okay, the top cop. So I'm already hating him. And guess who came and arrested me this time? Kirk. Now, when we say these stories, y'all got to help me, because I'm special. I need some help. Kirk came and arrested me. Guess what they gave me? 7 years. I go back to the penitentiary. I spend 14 more months in prison. I come home. No services have been offered to me. I do my thing. I get up this morning, but this morning, I'm not going to break in no houses, Chrissy. But here's where my stupidity comes back in. I live in North Little Rock, Arkansas. North Little Rock is famous for gang banging. If you've ever watched Banging in Little Rock, you'll understand. Where I'm from, I was the only white boy for 17 blocks. I lived on West 24th and Pike, and it is the projects. Now, I come home from the penitentiary after this fresh 14 months, and this time I'm going to take my gate check, preach, and I'm going to go buy a sack, and I'm going to flip it. Yeah, a gate check is the money you get when you are released from prison. And so the guy comes up on my porch. I sell him a gram of dope. It was the easiest case to identify that they ever made with a confidential informant. I'm the only white guy for 17 blocks, fresh out of prison. I'm in a wife beater with prison ink on both arms, and I just sold to a confidential informant. Guess who came and arrested me? I love y'all. Guess how much time they gave me? I go down there, I do 14 months, I still don't get offered help. It's catch and release. I'm in and out of a broken system, a system that doesn't work, right? Now, I'm gonna skip to some stuff. That was my 4th time in prison. At 37, 2014, I'm found non-responsive with a backseat full of stolen property, a pit bull, and an illicit amount of substances on my lap. I get revived, the dope falls out, it hits the floor. At this time in my life, I have 18 felony convictions and I sign a parole waiver and I'm going back to prison for my 6th time. We're gonna fast forward a little bit. God starts working while I'm in prison. The last time I get high, I'm high in the jail I'm in waiting to go to prison. I get trustee status because I'm a crap talker and the sheriff likes me and I've had leadership and I can influence people. So they put me up front. I got a big screen TV. I got a coffee pot. I got it made for doing time. And I get high. The day I get high, there's a confiscated car in the parking lot. Well, I'm on a little tweak, so my drug of choice has kicked in. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to pilfer through this confiscated car. And I see a box. Ooh, a box. Just a box. So I go in this box and it's this brand new leather Bible. And I'm like, okay, I'm stealing that. So I take that and I go hide it in my cell. About 2 hours later, the sheriff said, you need drug tests. That boy, he's on one. So the same day I get high, I steal the Bible, I get caught, I get locked in a cell and sent to the Department of Corrections. When you get to the Department of Corrections, you've got 17 to 24 days that you have to go through an intake process before they send you to your home unit. Guess what the only thing you can have in that cell is? Boy, when you get in a boxing match with Jesus Christ, you better have your gloves ready. So I'm sitting there and I start reading. I said, man, I'm here for 24 days, 17 days, whatever, before they send me, so I'm going to do this. I started in Genesis. I read the entire scriptures during this prison bid. I come home, I continue this. I'm going to cut to it because I know I'm running out of time. God is showing out in my life, right? I come home, I end up getting convicted, so on the previous dope charge, so that put me at 19 felony convictions, 6 trips to prison. They sentenced me to prison, but tell me I have to turn myself in later, which would have been my 7th trip. Now, the influence God puts me in, remind me, don't let me get away from that, okay? What's your name? Josh, you got to bring me back to hey, what happened to the prison sentence, okay? Because I'll forget. You got one job, Josh. Now, I need you to know I got 18 months clean at this time in my life. I get invited to come speak at the state capitol. At this time, I'm still fighting a charge. I'm on parole. I got my hat on backwards. I got a shirt on that says from the streets to the seats, right? And they want me to come speak at the state capitol. It's the governor's senior advisor. It's the head of the FBI. It's the special agent in charge of the DEA for Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. It's all these people and me, the dope fiend on parole with a pending charge. I look up, and here comes that tall, bald guy, Kirk. But now he's not in his police uniform. See, God doesn't waste anything. And so as Kirk Lane is walking up to me, I'm clean now. I'm a new creation, right? I couldn't wait to see him, Blake, so I walked up and I shook his hand. I said, man, I want to tell you thank you, and it's good to see you. And he looked me right in my face, preach. And he said, man, it's good to see you too. And I knew right then he had no clue who I was. That's important, because the man who arrested me multiple times at my worst, who I rode in the back of his car, who interrogated me, who put cuffs on me, no longer knew the creation that God had made me into.
Tell him. You better tell him. Come on.
So I got on the microphone and I started cracking jokes on him, and it hit him like a ton of bricks, and he came up and he bear hugged me. And for the next 6 months, we went to every college in Arkansas, and we shared a story of cops and robbers with a happy ending. Did he put handcuffs on me? Yeah. He also put my first pair of cufflinks on me. Right?
Wow. Come on.
He said, hey, Jimmy, I know that I don't understand this recovery thing, but I know one thing for sure. The life you're living is authentic, and you've really got it.
Come on.
And I said, what do you need? He said, I got a job open. I said, boy, get out of here. The government is not going to hire me. Now, by now, I get convicted of the charge, and I got to go do 76 more days in prison. And now, that's fine. I get convicted. I apply for this job. Kirk goes to the governor, and the governor's like, he's got how many felonies? And he says, 19. But he's sober. And the governor's got to take a political standpoint, and he says, we're going to hire him, Brad, but if it backfires, it's on you.
That's right.
It's on you. They gave me $50,000 to start a program in a jail. Guess where I went? The same jail I got high in and stole the Bible. Hunter Cruz, stand up. Hunter was in that first program 7 years ago, man.
Come on.
6 years ago. Now, we took 16 men. At the end of that program, 12 of them were clean, living a life. They were husbands. They were being daddies. They had jobs, all this stuff. The data we got from that, they gave me $250,000.
Woo!
And they said, create 5 more programs. So we went to 5 more jails. And the data from that, they gave me $1 million. And they said, go create programs. So when I tell you, God used the biggest donkey he could find, I mean, he did that. He did that. I got hired as the state peer coordinator. I got promoted to the manager of recovery. I got promoted one more time to the director of the Office of Recovery for the state of Arkansas. They gave me 10 people to work underneath me. When I got hired, Blake, they didn't even want to give me the keys to the state car. They thought I'd steal it. They said it's against policy, and God said I wrote the policy. Then they said, well, we can't put him over all recovery because they have to bill Medicaid, and he's a thief. And it's in statute. And God said, I appoint all authority, so we changed the state law. I need you to know this. I no longer work there because I wanted to go be with my guys and follow God. And I turned in my resignation, and as I was leaving, the governor of Arkansas pardoned me, making me the first person in the country with 19 felony convictions, 6 trips to prison to be pardoned. But I need you to know this. I was pardoned way before he put that pen to paper. I was pardoned way before. Now, I want to say this in closing. I'm a hot mess, man. I am imperfect, and if you put me on a pedestal, you're setting me up to let you down. I am as flawed and broken as they come. I can get as sick as some of my guys that are new in recovery and just got here. Hey, I promise, but I need you to know this. Everything that was broken in my life, God stopped with me. That curse ended with me. I got a 13-year-old, he's got a game room, and I didn't steal nothing in it. My wife has never had my hands put on her. The hardest thing I have to do is learn how to listen to her, which is very hard. Very hard. I get to be the man in my house. My son will never know what it's like to need me and me be chasing a bump, man. He'll never need his dad and me not be there, man. I got 4 puppies. I got 2 cats. Me and my wife both got 2 personalities.